What is up, RotoGrinders? Welcome to the NFL Pick 6 Show, Week 7. As always, myself, Dean Shavelson, at DFS_Almanac, joined today, as always, by Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis. You know, the worksheets. John Daigle, ETR, established the run. John Daigle, we always say Daigle, man of the people. Daigle, you proved it. You were in the streets today, I guess last week. You wanted to mention this at the top of the show. Welcome. You had a little story for the people you wanted to share because, you are a man of the people and you're interacting with the viewers. Tell us what went down in the streets.
To be fair, I'm the self-labeled man of the people, but also I will go out for a drink with listeners because I like strangers and I love the people that listen to our show just so I can also give them the intel of all the dumb shit behind the scenes. But I happen to be out with a friend, Eric, who listens to the show. And we just met at a happy hour, and he was talking to me about what he does in his own life for a job and his experience dabbling in the fantasy football world. And then he told me that he bought a website. He bought a URL and is building out something. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of exciting. Like, what'd you buy? What'd you name it? He bought KonamiCode.com. And I just started busting out laughing. I told him, maybe not your lane. Maybe pick something original. That's my first tip for getting in the industry. But I have a story to tell everyone because I nearly fell out of my stool laughing.
Rich, do you want to? Is this the first time you're hearing this, Rich?
Yeah, it's the first I've heard. But no, it's fun. What is the direction for the website?
Konami-code.com, and the idea is to build out profiles with 8-bit images. And nice. Like matchups with 8-bit images as well. So photos are already up there. We're giving them pub for your idea, but whatever.
I love it, man. Hey, listen, if someone can make a buck off me, man, do it, man.
To be fair, he did say, has anyone ever thought of that? And I was like, buddy, I got some stories to tell you.
No, I mean, not the pixel players, though. I love that. No. I do love that.
I just pulled it up on the fly. Yeah, the first thing I'm seeing is a Jonnu Smith and Mike Gesicki, some tight ends.
Pixel art is like a thing like people are getting into. Like you can create your own pixel art.
It's pretty cool. At first I just put in Konami code, not the dash. And apparently that's available on GoDaddy for $1,980, Rich. I don't know if you're interested or not, but
I do have my own URL already on reserve, but I did not go with KonamiCode.com because I was worried about the cross traffic there. I'm surprised. I just write about fantasy football, but I'm surprised no one reached out to me and was like, "Hey, you can't use that."
Rich, is it also true with you as well? Can strangers just slide in your DMs and say, "Hey, let's meet up for a beverage"? Are you as a?
No, my DMs aren't open because I'm not a man of the internet. People, I'm a man of the people. I am very friendly, as Daigle knows. I will hang out with anyone. But I don't know how people have their DMs open. The internet is a crazy place.
I also think it's a little different because like you're in burbs, whereas I am smack in a very big city. Also, like you have children and a wife to attend to as well in your life. Whereas, I'm literally
Twitter's like a wild place. Like I saw Dwayne McFarland tweet out just like a reasonable take, his opinion on the Devontae Adams trade. Like wasn't anything. It was just like, this is this. And the replies were just met with so much vitriol. And like, I always tell JJ, because, I've had Twitter for over 10 years and like, it's just a different place now. But like every time I go to tweet something and like I get a response, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why you just don't tweet. Like, what is it? Like the world's just broken. Like the old bird app, Elon turned it into the heart of darkness.
Yeah.
Is it both ends? I didn't see this tweet from McFarland, but it's like both extremes as far as like, Adams is the best, Adams is the worst, that kind of thing.
It was just like basically a bunch of people calling him like an idiot. Like just for like saying like just basically having like a rational take. Or even if you disagreed with it, you'd be like, just keep scrolling. But like it's hilarious. But then I always reminded like because sometimes I'll just tweet like a random fact and I'll get like a fan of the team that or like reply to me. And I'm like, dude, I didn't say anything. I just wrote like this is what Justin Fields is averaging yards per attempt or some shit. And like it's like, like we're 4-2. Like I'm like, all right, man, chill.
The numbers, Russ Wilson truthers are going to come at you with the same thought process. Get ready for that. I'm sure. I don't think still exists in 2024. Thankfully, well, I guess at least on DK we do not have to deal with that game. And in FanDuel we probably don't either, right? We have an 11-game slate on FanDuel, 10-game on DK. a bunch of high totals this week. We'll dig into Carolina, Washington in the 50s, Seattle.
Oh, and
Atlanta
Sunday
in the
night
50s.
saved me last week on FanDuel. The old FanDuel, I complained about them adding the game. The added because I had a couple sweats that like I got ran down on, but last week pulled me back, baby.
Nobody was good last Sunday. It was supposed to be a big game, right? I don't think maybe Harris. No, it was the Giants. Who was the Giants played somebody? It was a low scoring game.
Well, I faded the Tony Pollard talk last week because I have Tony Pollard PTSD and I don't want to play him. And he scores on that 20-yard 3rd and 20 draw play.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to adjust because I played a lot of Josh Jacobs, and I ended up swapping down from CeeDee Lamb, and I ended up swapping out to get to Joe Burrow and Bijan Robinson on FanDuel because so many people had CeeDee Lamb. And like that was it was a massive swing for me because Lamb started the opening drive out hot, but Bijan smoked him, and then Burrow opening play runs for like a 50-yard touchdown. Wasn't even good in the game, but gets 20 fantasy points because he gets 12 rushing points. So it was huge. So the old Sunday night swapperoo got me there. Helped me out.
We did have another listener reach out to me. That's just my new bit now. Is I'm going to tell you what listeners tell me. But no, he took down the $75 single entry based on our information about that night slate because he had Tyrone Tracy and another play in that game. I can't recall who. Maybe like Chase Brown late swap.
Also, one of the big calls last week in this show, you guys are pretty out of it. We sort of talked about like Dallas might be terrible, and they might be terrible. They got absolutely thrashed. Dog walked, whatever sort of adjective you want to use, like embarrassed. They're doing like offensive lineman screens and like flea flickers, and Detroit is just messing around.
Dallas knows how to fail, man. They don't half step. They just don't lose games. But our main point was going back to that week 3 game, I believe, when they played the Ravens, and that was kind of like the setup. The Detroit just beat them down.
And to be fair, Penei Sewell would be Cowboys' best running back, so give him the touches. That's okay.
It was a scoregami too, as well. I think 49-7 or something like that. Oh, we've never seen that score before.
I couldn't believe when I looked up and saw there was still 10 minutes left in the third quarter. I was like, how is Brady and Burkhardt going to get to the end of this thing?
You know how in college football they speed up the clock? I thought they were going to speed up the clock on Dallas. Just let's a running clock. This is getting embarrassing. Jerry Jones, I'm sure he's definitely handling it well if you're following the local Dallas media as well. But Dallas on bye. We're not talking about Dallas, not talking about Chicago, not talking about the Sean Payton Bowl, Denver and the Saints on whatever's left of the Saints playing Thursday night.
I'm sorry to everybody for that.
That you put the mush, you put the kibosh on the Saints. You crowned them, and then they are who we thought they were. It turns out
this is why you don't get excited early in the season when you're right about something, because you'll be wrong very soon. And this is why you never tweet during games to y'all. This doesn't really have to be like, you always get someone like tweets in the first quarter like, this dude sucks, and then he has like 3 touchdowns the rest of the game. Just don't do it.
Is this the first time we're seeing this, or if I forgot? Is Jacksonville back-to-back in London? Has this happened before?
They did it last year.
Okay, I just kind of forgot. Jacksonville sticking back out there in London, another London game. I assume the Jaguars have like a bunch of Gumars in London for some reason in my head. I don't know why. Because they're out there every single year, right?
They did stay there. They did stay there, so they have a time zone edge if the Jaguars can ever have an edge in their life. And then also the Drake May MRI that happened today, so we'll wait and find that out too. I also like the Jets, because of the Aaron Rodgers effect, are also on primetime again on Sunday Night Football this week, except we're now all of a sudden excited since they'll have Devontae Adams. So that made it at least a little more interesting as opposed to just watching the Jets.
36-point game total.
Yeah. It's the lowest total on the board. Yeah, obviously not on DK, but it's on FanDuel. And Russell Wilson, just like, man, just no fun at all. It's, I guess we'll talk about that a little bit to some degree. Speaking of fun, though, Daigle, you always say, and we're going to dig in a little more nonsense-free show, I suppose. We normally just going to dive in, but a lot to discuss. But Daigle, you always talk about how the NFL, there's no fun allowed. We're actually, points are being scored. We have some high totals and trades. Apparently, you can trade in the NFL. The one that you referenced here, Devontae Adams is a Jet, and of course, Amari Cooper is a Brown. Maybe more stuff to come. We'll see. Stay tuned, I suppose. But any instant reaction to these things? Are we excited? Are trades back?
Oh gosh, it's already been going on the last 48 hours where everyone has an opinion. I've stepped back from both players, honestly, because I know it immediately what started happening on social media, because now we just get too much into the weeds rather than stepping back and providing context to everything. It's become where like Amari Cooper's apparently based on separation data, based on ESPN Open Score, like one of the worst wide receivers in the league, when I think it's pretty easy to just, again, zoom out and say Amari Cooper's playing with Josh Allen. What about that? What if that's just good enough? So I think both trades are good on the field. Devontae Adams is the wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 6 in points per game. The last 2 years he played with Aaron Rodgers. And again, I think it's quite literally that simple for both players.
Yeah. And Cooper, like you said, jumping from the worst quarterback of the decade, of the millennium. I don't know I don't know how ambitious we want to be. It sounds hyperbolic, but it might not be.
The vibe's got to be up for Amari leaving the situation. I mean, I've just never seen a team. I can't remember a team that just like the vibes have been this bad. And like that, we just went through like 3 years of the Jets being like like where Robert Saleh was just like staring through people's soul, like for like on the sideline, and like this Browns team. Like the vibes are just all time bad. Honestly,
well, you got your finger on the pulse, right? What do you get from the locals when you leave the house? Do you ever leave the house?
No, dude, I haven't been outside since August.
Yeah, so like, but from what you hear, it's probably people are not happy with the.
I already have friends that have dumped their season tickets for sure. I mean, I'm not a Browns fan, but I have friends that are already trying to get out.
Yeah, I mean, what are you getting? 20 cents in the dollar? I have no idea. Yeah. It's probably not great. And they deserve better. You guys deserve better in Cleveland.
They don't want to see Jerry Jeudy get 9 targets a game.
Listen, are Cedric Tillman bags up now?
I don't know.
Hey, Chubb is back, right? We think Nick Chubb's going to be back this week. Get excited about that. But all right, let's go ahead and dive in. Give our favorite games, the 3 most important games on the board. We're going to kind of dig into, and then we can kind of circle back and talk about our favorite plays amongst the the games we did not yet feature. Yeah. Slate. This is a good one for sure. Very first game, we're talking about Detroit at Minnesota. Minnesota coming off the bye. 50 total, high and tight. Minnesota at home in the Dome. Good pace expected as well. 2 of the best offenses we've seen this season. Bummer for Detroit. Hutchinson out for the season. Aaron Jones currently questionable. They picked up Cam Akers, I guess, as some sort of insurance. I wouldn't look too much into that, but Tyson Chandler possibly could be a thing if Jones doesn't go. As always, your first reminder that we do record on a Wednesday night. But Rich, you sound anxious to get in here as far as Detroit, Minnesota. Pick the side you want to pick, and let's go with it.
Yeah, fun game. The top 2 teams in point differential. The 3rd and 4th team in explosive pass plays playing each other. 2 systems we believe in. A lot of really good players in this game. We do lose Aiden Hutchinson, and it's like a game that means something too. Obviously, in division, Vikings are undefeated. It has like one of those cross sections, right, where it's like a good football game. We want to watch it for football perspective, but also for fantasy perspective. I always like when we get to double dip and have those types of games. I'm not sure. I guess I'll start with some of the Lions stuff just because I think there's some fun like Brian Flores, Jared Goff stuff in this game. Goff's been like absolutely like on fire like his last 3 games. I mean, his last 3 games, he's 54 of 66 passing. Like, wow. Just like absolutely cooking right now. Like they're not even throwing incompletions. He did have one to Jameson. Even his incompletions are on target. If you saw Jameson Williams brick that one where he just tried to run before he caught it. But when Brian Flores faced Jared Goff last year, he did what Brian Flores does. He blitzed Goff on 73% of his dropbacks, the highest blitz rate versus any quarterback they faced multiple times last year. They also played a lot of zone coverage, a lot of shell coverage behind those blitzes, 73% zone coverage rate, cover 3, 42% of the time. And they pressured Goff 34% of the time. And when they pressured him, that we know like the Jared Goff bugaboo, when you get him off his spot, that's kind of his thing. Like people say, like just putting Jared Goff outdoors makes him a bad quarterback, but really it's like you got to move Jared Goff off the spot. Disruption's always been his thing. He was only 9 of 23, 4.7 yards or pass attempt in those games. But here's the catch. When the Vikings didn't pressure him, Jared Goff was 44 of 49 in those games, 10 yards per pass attempt, 3 touchdowns. If they don't get to him, like this is still a spot where I think the Lions can have a lot of success. I'm very curious to see like if any team can run the ball in this game. But I kind of think like Jared Goff definitely could have a lot of success here if Brian Flores does, and then the Vikings don't get pressure on him.
So they're going to get pressure. They're going to blitz, right? It's just a matter of if they can get in there. Do we have a lean as far as Detroit O-line versus Minnesota D-line? Is there any sort of winner in that? You guys have that?
I mean, I think the Detroit O-line's the best in the NFL. And then when you pair that with scheme, like, and their linemen are good receivers.
So is Goff going to stay protected is the question. And I guess it's an unanswerable question, I suppose. But what are we anticipating here, John?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning into that direction as well. We've talked about it in the show in the past because we've had a couple games where even with Brock Purdy, where we wanted to play a quarterback against the Vikings, and it just really comes down to Brian Flores being able to limit ceiling performances, and we need like a top 3 quarterback in DFS. But that's kind of the way I'm looking at it too, is that I may still run it at Flores and give this a shot, especially if everyone's going to instead try and play it from the Sam Darnold side, which I don't think is a bad idea at all, especially if we don't have Aaron Jones in this game. But despite the Lions being like bottom 3 in all the pass rating metrics, raw pass rate over expected, Jared Goff the last 3 games, 23, 18, and 25 pass attempts, I also just have respect for their coaching staff. I think they're intelligent, and I think they know how they're going to win this game based on exactly what happened last year. So I am interested in Jared Goff in DFS tournaments this year. And if that's the case, the issue, of course, is that everything continues to be spread out across the board. Even last week, Laporta ultimately got there, but it was a design play, 1 50-yard touchdown, and that 1 reception as well. But beyond that, at least we know. Go ahead.
On 1 target.
On the 1 target, yes. The 1 catch, the 50-yard touchdown. But at least we know that Jared Goff is still leaning into Amon-Ra St. Brown, including when he's been under pressure regardless. And so if this is a slate where people do not want to pay up for those 2 options, Goff to St. Brown, especially since St. Brown last week did nothing since it wasn't necessary to do anything against the Cowboys, then of course I'm interested in running that back.
It's interesting to see the chat talking about Vikings D and play for them, but probably it should be the Lions D. The Vikings, for as good as they've been, they give away 4.8 sacks plus turnovers per game. That's the 5th highest in the NFL. For as good as they've been, like that's something that screams like they're going to probably do some regression as well. But
what about the loss of Hutchinson? How much does that affect them?
Yeah, so the loss of Hutchinson definitely is going to be a thing. But these are 2 teams that aren't Detroit, right? Like they haven't played Detroit yet. Like so, all these other teams that like they're giving up all these sacks and turnovers, and it hasn't really caught them up yet. Like Darnold has been turning the ball over, and he's been taking a lot of sacks. But yeah, you look at Hutchinson; he was the league leader in pressures. He had 10 more than the next closest player this season. 25% of his snaps as a pass rusher generated pressure. No player that had as many pass rush snaps as Aiden Hutchinson had a higher rate this season. And like Daigle said, like the Lions have like top down, their passing metrics like aren't that good from a pass defense. But when they did get pressure, they had a 49% completion rate, only 5 yards per pass attempt, a first down or touchdown, 26% of those attempts. So pressure was a big part of the success they were having. So they haven't allowed multiple passing touchdowns to anybody yet. But they do face 40 pass attempts per game because nobody can run on them. So we're going to get a lot of dropbacks. And like I said, Darnold's taking a lot of sacks and is low-key turning the ball over. So these are games I don't think either defense is like off the table because this is a game like that should feature a lot of dropbacks because both run defenses are so good. Although it didn't matter really for the Lions running backs last year. I mean, they just are pretty good against everybody like this run game. And you go back to last year, Gibbs and Montgomery didn't necessarily slash them, but they scored 4 touchdowns in the 2 games against the Vikings. So this is just a run game that just kind of always gets there against everybody. But yeah, that's what's interesting about this game, though, is that the Vikings do turn it over. I think my favorite way to play this game is through the top 2 wide receivers, though. Like Daigle already hinted on the Amon-Ra stuff. And Amon-Ra, like, hasn't been a guy like people I think have been excited to pay for this year because he hasn't really been dropping a lot of like super high scores. But when you look at like a lot of receivers that can work inside and out and what they've done against Minnesota. Stephon Diggs, 10 for 94. Jaden Reed, 7 for 140 and a touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 13 for 100 and a touchdown. Like those are games that we're probably looking at him having. And then you look at Amon-Ra in this matchup last year. I mean, what do you have? 12 for 106 and 1, 7 for 144 and 1. And then Justin Jefferson in this game, because we haven't seen the Vikings like drop back a lot in the second half yet this season. And like, this is a game where we expect them to get pushed on the scoreboard and have a like full 4 quarters of like a passing game. So like Justin Jefferson and like all the stuff, his limitations that have been just volume based compared to like his peers, like raw target counts. He's been great when he's getting targeted, and he's getting targeted a lot. It's just that the Vikings haven't thrown a lot in the second half, and we expect that to happen here. And he eviscerates man coverage, which the Lions play a lot. They did not play a lot of man coverage, Aaron Glenn, against the Vikings last year, and it still didn't matter. When they played zone, Justin Jefferson caught 14 of 18 targets in this matchup for 248 yards and a touchdown. Wide receivers have scored the highest rate of points against the Lions this year, 65% of the points they allowed. CeeDee Lamb didn't quite get there last week, but had a modest game. But yeah, I think if you want to get creative, then something like just the mini of Jefferson plus Amon-Ra is something to get in this game.
I don't want to lose Jordan Addison in the fold either, because I do think he's live depending on what you need to spend down for salary expectations. Even left us with a 28.5% target share before the Vikings left for their bye. The last 2 weeks, he's been targeted on 21% of his routes, the last 2 games from Minnesota too. And it's just the way they use those guys. It's not only that, since Addison returned from injury a couple weeks ago, that the target shares are now condensed. Like Aaron Jones in week 4 had 5 targets, but beyond that, no other receiver in those 2 games Addison played had more than 2 targets. They literally just don't go anywhere else. And then also they're interchangeable from the slot. That's where we're trying to attack, is that middle of the field area where the Lions have allowed the most slot points per game to opposing wide receivers. So I do think if you want to spin down, Addison is okay too.
I think there's a chance Hockenson can come back this week. I don't know if we would roster him at 5-2. I would say probably not. He's in a little bit. Do you guys have a lean as far as, do we care if Hockenson comes back this week?
Not for DFS.
Yeah, I mean, he might eat off somebody else maybe to some degree, but not really. Yeah, just noting it, I suppose. If you can only pick one, go ahead, Daigle.
I just haven't put thought into it, honestly. I don't think it happens this week. I could be wrong.
Okay,
it's Wednesday.
Yeah, I think it's Jefferson over Amon-Ra. Like if you're picking one for cash games, yeah, that's just feels like that route is just cleaner, less competition. Yep. You mentioned Addison. What about JMO? Is JMO in play? And like, if the 3K darts, Tim Patrick has kind of shown some stuff. Is he getting enough routes out there? I'm not sure if he is. But
yeah, last week was a unique game for the Lions. I mean, they had 10 guys get targets last week, which is not like them the past couple of years, right? Like it's been a concentrated target tree. You know, we saw Laporte only had 1 target. He had the dope play, but like had only had 1 target. Jamison Williams definitely is intriguing, you know, especially in this matchup, because we know the Vikings blitz 40% of the time. We know what they're going to do. And he actually leads the Lions in target rate when Goff has been blitzed this season. And he actually has the most receiving yards in the NFL against the blitz this year. And you might say, well, that's just against man coverage. Brian Flores doesn't. The Vikings don't play a lot of man coverage, but it's actually not true. On zone blitzes, his target rate goes up. It's 32% of the team targets on zone blitzes for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns against those too as well. So he definitely is in play, because he always he could score like basically on any play.
3 touchdowns this year of at least 50 yards or more. And like, he just kind of needs that one play, and like, he's not going to get volume, obviously. 4 targets last week. They didn't really necessarily need, like I said, second half. 2 previous week, 3 the previous week, but he can get the break.
The problem with him is always kind of like the price, right? Like what you're paying for.
Mm-hmm.
Like you kind of you have to have it, right? Like
we need some more. We need something to open up at running back. And again, we say that every week. Something's always happening at the end of the week. But we got some mid-K options to talk about. But yeah, right now it's a tight slate.
I think every time we've gotten off this show, something has happened though, like during the week.
Yeah, this shouldn't be the first, the last show you listen to. It should be the first show you listen to, or at least maybe the second show. I don't know, depending on what's out there. But do not use this as your last show. The week is fluid, and news is always coming on through. And,
I can tell you this though, it won't be Ty Chandler if we don't get Aaron Jones, which I doubt we do. I think we're probably trying not to get him because it's a hamstring and they're undefeated. But we were in this spot literally last year with Ty Chandler in 2 games. He started 2 games against the Detroit Lions. First game, he had 8 carries for 17 yards. In the second one, 12 for 69. It's just so hard to run on the Lions. And again, we'll see what the impact of losing Aiden Hutchinson goes, but they have some beef in the middle of that, defensive line. They just re-signed McNeil to a contract, and they added, why am I losing the name of the dude they got from the Bengals?
BJ Hill.
Head, but yeah, no.
Reed.
Yeah. So it's like this is still a team that I don't think is going to get run on very much. So
it also goes back.
It's a passing game, man.
It goes back to last year too. Like now in the Lions' last 25 games dating back to last year, only Christian McCaffrey in the conference championship and Kenneth Walker, a superhero, have rushed for at least 80 yards against them. No one else has reached that number.
The other thing is, like, the sites are preemptively bumping these guys up. Chandler at 5'6". I don't know if you guys saw the Gorendo price, 6'6" on DK.
Absolutely
they didn't see the Chiefs defense. They didn't. They haven't seen the Chiefs defense.
They did. They also didn't see Gorendo only get 9 of 19 carries. After,
I can kind of appreciate trying to avoid like the 4K running back that everybody jams in, but like there's a happy median somewhere between that being 4.2 and 6'6".
Like when Cam Akers,
Tyrone Davis this week.
Yeah,
because he played on Monday night.
When Cam Akers, Tyrone Tracy, when those guys are 4K, that's a different story because 5,400 is no longer minimum. That's kind of just what we're looking for around like the touch-based early down workhorse guys.
By the way, Ray Davis, R2D2, do we like it? Have you guys heard it? The nickname?
When you play like that, yeah, he calls himself R2D2. That's the nickname.
Oh, speaking of nicknames, we just found out that the Lions called their backfield Sonic and Knuckles.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's good. That's pretty strong.
That today, one of the coaches said that they refer to them as Sonic and Knuckles. I like that.
So Gibbs has to be Sonic, I assume.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's pretty strong.
Montgomery does a lot of good things, but being Sonic is not one of them.
Montgomery is just like he's been so good this year.
Yeah. I do think if we have to, though, because of the passing, like it's a Gibbs game. It seems like one where they try to get him involved more creatively out of the backfield. But again, the Lions can kind of push their way around. It probably doesn't allow for ceiling Montgomery games, but like 60 and 2 touchdowns is in his range of outcomes.
Yeah, the thing that sucks always with the Lions' backs is the price. Again, the price, right? Like you just know you're not going to get like 25 opportunities out of any of these guys.
Yeah, but
anything else here, boys?
But when Montgomery is getting his jersey pulled off and still just kind of nod waves everyone and runs to the end zone, it's still pretty fun to see.
That's a fun game. I believe we are moving on to another fun game. This should be another good one. Another one that's high and tight in the dome. Seattle traveling cross country to Atlanta. 51 is a total of 51. And Atlanta just a 3-point favorite here, Daigle. Seahawks. This feels like the game that's going to be a little bit more popular, at least from a quarterback perspective. I think Geno, I'm seeing him right now, it's being spit out, is probably the de facto cash game quarterback. Again, this stuff is fluid. But, your thoughts as far as Seattle, Atlanta start, wherever you want to start.
If this one's the one that's very popular, this is also the one I think I'm struggling the most to get there to ceiling expectations. It opened up at 48.5 points. Everyone saw Derek Carty's pace projections, Pat Thorman's pace rankings, and then, of course, it just blows up all the way to 51.5, 52 points. Will probably continue going up. But we do have a little bit and although Geno Smith will probably get the volume, and even his last 3 games, raw pass attempts, 56, 40, 52, the Seahawks are a passing team under Ryan Grubb. We do have a little bit of a history with Geno Smith and Raheem Morris. It's not apples to apples. It's a completely different unit with the Rams. They had Aaron Donald there too. But Geno threw for multiple touchdowns in only one of his last 5 games against the Rams. It's also hard to stack him because Jackson Smith-Njigba, as we know, is a player you can play, but you don't watch in fantasy football because it's really ugly how he gets there every week, is more peppered close to the line of scrimmage. And DK Metcalf, like, he's fun. He can break a slate at any time, but it's also that the way he's being used this year, while good, it's more dispersed around him under Grubb, like Washington's passing offense in college under Grubb. It's that Metcalf 2 years ago led the league in end zone targets. Last year was top 4 in end zone targets. And this year, because it's so spread out, everyone just getting involved there. You just go to the open man every time. Metcalf has 5 end zone targets. Smith-Njigba and Tyler Lockett have 4 apiece. And so that's why Metcalf's 2 touchdowns this year, they've all come outside the red zone. They've all just been deep bombs. And again, he's capable of doing that. but it's also concerning in this game because Morris and the Falcons defense really haven't given us a reason to think that someone can come in and throw for like 350 and 3 touchdowns against them. They've had tough spots too. Baker Mayfield a couple weeks ago, everyone remembers that game. Baker's been a top 7 quarterback in every game outside of the Broncos performance this year, but he still only had 180 yards. He just happened to throw it for 3 touchdowns too. Andy Dalton, the Panthers offense last week as well, 220 and 2 touchdowns. So Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, all didn't reach 220 yards either. So I think although I understand the volume and I get the cash game play, I think for tournaments, I'm much more willing to kind of combat this ownership that's coming in on Seattle's side, at least through the passing game.
You mentioned JSN. He's kind of like sexy Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't know if he's very, very similar the way those two guys play. It seems like Lockett is basically playing tag, not like flag football out there. Like you just got to grab his flag.
I always think about you, Dean, every time now that he's just like I ain't getting hit.
That's a man who cares about his future. I respect it. Like he gets down, he just catches it, and he gets down. It's like he's in the 2-minute drill, and they have to run a hurry up offense or something like that.
These rookie wide receivers that we keep losing rookie wide receivers to concussions. They got to take notes from Tyler Lockett.
We have interesting because like Walker on one side is 7'3", and the other side it's Bijan at 7'1". Metcalf is 6'8". The one on the other side, London at 6'9". So like basically the same prices. Who do you want to build through here, Rich? You want to build through Seattle? You want to build through Atlanta? Of course, you can make yourself a nice little game stack.
Yeah, this game is interesting. I mean, Seattle's just throwing the ball so much. I mean, Geno Smith leads the league in dropbacks per game. They are 3rd in plays per game too, and the highest dropback. Like that's a cocktail that we like. The Falcons give a lot of rushing yards to quarterbacks too, and Geno actually has rushed for the most yards per game since his rookie season so far. They've been a little sporadic, but I do like DK a little bit more than Daigle. You look at Raheem Morris. Well, DK had a lot of success against Raheem Morris. The Falcons also play a lot of cover 3, 6th highest rate in the league. DK Metcalf against cover 3. By far, like he's dusting the rest of the Seahawks in target share. 25%. The next closest receiver is Kenneth Walker, actually, on the team at 15%, 60% of the air yards. And Atlanta, for as good as they've been top down a defensive team and like not giving a lot of yards, they're 30th in points allowed per game to wide receiver ones. Week 1, George Pickens 6 for 85. Devontae Smith without AJ Brown had 7 for 76 and a touchdown. Rashee Rice 12 for 110 and a touchdown. Olave had 8 for 87. Mike Evans had 5 for 62 and 2, and then Deontay Johnson last week again 6 for 78 and 1. Wide receiver ones have been getting there against them, so he becomes a lot of upside too. But the pricing makes that interesting. I kind of want to get, if I'm going to play this game, I don't think I want to like nickel and dime it. I just want to go all in and like make a lineup around this game where you're trying to get to cover your bases and just play like all the pieces. I feel that very similarly about the next game we'll talk about too. But that's kind of how I feel. I mean, Kenneth Walker, I did like week 2. I wrote about it in the worksheet when the game he came back, about like his role, that he was like running a route on over 50% of the dropbacks. And it's like, man, like if he's going to be doing this and this team's throwing as much, like he's going to be like one of the guys that ends up being like one of the better value picks in fantasy, because he's now become, we know the ceiling is always there with Kenneth Walker. Like he can house like any play like he did against the Lions. But if we're going to start giving this dude like 4+ catches a game and give him a high floor, he becomes that high floor, high upside player. And rest of the season, man, like if you're in season long leagues, I don't know how many running backs I would want over Kenneth Walker right now.
Saquon?
No, I don't think so. And we'll probably talk about Saquon because of the revenge game. But Saquon, like the second AJ Brown and Devontae Smith came back, guess who didn't get targets?
Yeah. Something is weird in Philly, man. It's just, it's so strange. Like I thought they're going to, I'm still waiting for that offense to click. I think it was a stat. You guys probably already saw it. They have yet to score, I think, in a first quarter this season.
Jalen Hurts also last week had his lowest rate of play action passes in any game of his career last week.
I don't know. Are they just not as good as we want them to be, or is there something just strange
They're
going on?
Probably just working through stuff. And remember so he's the second most pressured quarterback right now. Only Jacoby Brissett, who obviously that's not going to change. Well, maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, Drake May. But he's actually getting pressured more than Deshaun Watson, and Jordan Mailata's now out. They get Lane Johnson back, and now Jordan Mailata's out. So
It might be Grant Calcaterra season.
No, we're not
now.
doing that.
No,
I mean Goddard's literally missed time for like 3 years in a row, and that's like the only time Calcaterra's like caught a pass.
So somebody will do it. Somebody will do it because he's so cheap. That's how these things work.
He's cheap and he's a tight end. Like what? That's the qualifications.
We're gonna break my rule. If you want to play a min-price tight end, I'm not allowed to push back.
We got a cheap tight end in the next game too, so we'll get there. We'll get to our cheap tight ends. Don't worry. But yeah, I want to move to the Falcons side of the ball because they're live as well, just based on man how injured this Seattle defense is, and we'll see if they've had 10 days. We'll see if the injury report ultimately carries over. But because they're missing Byron Murphy and just so many different linebackers and everyone else in their front seven, they're just getting mowed over. Like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery combined for 110 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tyrone Tracy's first start of his career, 18 carries for 129 yards. And then we saw both Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerrero average over 9 yards per carry last week. And what's happened with Bijan Robinson is, although he's the one still running routes significantly, all these 60-40 timeshares that are happening around the league, like with the Tank Bigsby and ETN or Dearness Johnson, Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary when it happens, the Bucks with Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker, it's pretty much like one guy dominating routes like a Breece Hall and the other guy mixing in for carries. But it's the fact that Algier is still here to stay because he's so good at football. Like these last 3 weeks, Bijan's handled 55% of the backfield touches to Algier's 45%. And it's actually Algier who has 3 carries to Bijan's 1 inside the 5-yard line in that time. So if you're attacking this through the ground, like I don't think Algier is just a large field milli maker entry. If you want to save the money, I do think he's pretty live for tournaments.
5-1 on DK, it's a pretty fair price. If we're building a stack here, John, do you want to start with Cousins? Do you want to start with Geno?
Geno for me, just because we still have the volume. And again, right now, even in cash games, I'll be playing Geno despite the back, just for ownership reasons. I may combat that in tournaments. But at least for Kirk, we have a pretty good idea of what to do through the air with him because Drake London, ever since week 1, it's kind of been an afterthought, that game where all they did was run pistol against the Steelers. Since then, London's been the wide receiver 7 in points per game, operating pretty much as like a Devonta Smith power slot role in that time. And we'll see what happens with Tariq Woolen on the injury report. Maybe he doesn't come back this game. It certainly helped the Niners last week that he was out. If he is back, we know we want to attacking Seattle in the middle of the field where Drake London is still operating the most. So yeah, I want to start with Geno, but London and Algier, not to hate on Bijan Robinson, but for salary purposes, I think those are 2 guys I'm looking into heavily on the opposite side.
Well, Rich, you mentioned Walker with a 15% target percent. Geno and Walker as a pairing, is that something we can do?
I mean, I love playing quarterbacks, running backs together. I mean, I've always liked that, especially in larger field.
Still an edge.
Even very small stuff. I love it.
Sims,
one of my favorite things.
The Sims still show quarterback, running back stacks and overstacking. Like we talk about onslaughts all the time on this show. Like last week when $5 minus Mike Evans takes down every tournament. Those are still the 2 edges in tournaments.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like something around this game of something like Geno, DK plus London, either plus Algier, plus Bijan, plus Walker. Like, I feel like if you're going to play this game, like you just want to go waist deep, baby.
All right. You mentioned there's the next game, Rich, you sounded excited about as well. All 3 games we're talking about, super exciting as far as the board. It feels like a good week overall. We don't have a total under 41.5, at least on DK. Again, the FanDuel slate does have that Pittsburgh and Jets game. But game 3, Carolina, Washington, defense optional, Washington 7.5 point favorite versus Carolina, Rich. You could start either side. I suppose you want to start on Washington.
No, I mean, I'll start because I was thinking my cash game quarterback was going to be Andy Dalton, like probably for sure. Like I was thinking, like as you were laying on the Geno stuff, I was like, man, like Andy Dalton looks like he's just a little bit cheaper. But I haven't like really started to build lineups yet. But my initial thought coming into the week was Andy Dalton was going to be my guy because Andy Dalton's trended downwards since his first start. But then when you look at his last 3 starts have come against 3 teams that are top 10 in yards per pass attempt allowed. That definitely is about to change here. And then we talk about Carolina. Carolina actually has the same team total that the Buccaneers have this week. They have a same total as the Texans. They actually have a higher team total than the Cardinals this week. Like I mean, so like there's a lot of signal here that like they're in a spot where they're going to get pushed on the scoreboard. It's a good passing matchup. They're going to have to score points, and it's a better matchup than Dalton's probably had since in the the first start that he made. Washington is one of 2 teams that are allowing more passing points per attempt than actually the Carolina Panthers. 27th in completion rate, 30th in yards per pass attempt, 31st in touchdown rate. I mean, I think Dalton's like a really solid streamer. I think he's going to have a nice floor this week, and he's got like some fun stacking partners. We obviously know we can jam in Deontay, right? Like since Dalton took over, he's wide receiver 7 in target share, wide receiver 8 in share of air yards, wide receiver 4 in just raw targets per game, 10.8 targets per game. He also leads the NFL with 9 end zone targets since Dalton took over. And we've seen like Washington has allowed the most points per game to wide receiver 1s this season. They just faced A. Flowers, gave up 9 for 132. But I think you can go down the bag here and you can look at a guy like Xavier Legette. And how about a min-price Jalen Coker? Jalen Coker is because a lot of people are going to go to Noah Brown in this game. But Noah Brown, even last week, he had like an abnormal target per route rate, but he only ran a route on 64% of the dropbacks. Washington's still rotating these guys behind Terry McLaurin. Jalen Coker actually has run a higher percent of the team routes than Noah Brown and did again last week. He's had some okay games. He's min-priced on both sides. I think on FanDuel, he's 4,200. Like if you just get a touchdown out of him, he's on the field. Last week, he ran a route on 75% of the dropbacks. He was Steve Smith's favorite wide receiver as a route runner in this draft class from Holy Cross.
I pulled that up. I've never heard of him.
Yeah, you can go down the bag here. I mean, he's min-priced. A lot of people are going to go to Jatavian Sanders, but Tommy Tremble missed last week with a concussion, and he was ahead of Sanders. So we kind of see if Tremble comes back or not. But you can do like Dalton, Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, Coker, or Legette if you feel safer playing Legette because you want to ride that pony. Man, and then the running backs in this game, I want to take up the whole game. This is my favorite game though by far on this slate.
I agree. I completely agree. This is the game when you say about going overboard. That's also maybe why I was like, actually, there's enough holes to poke in the Seattle game where I kind of actually just want to attack Panthers Commanders instead.
Yeah, just kind of digging in. I was pulling it up on the fly. I guess he was undrafted, right? Steve Smith's favorite receiver was undrafted, or
he's his favorite route runner in the class. Steve Smith's doing those underdog clips this year, and he was He called him Tim Duncan, is what he called him as a wide receiver. Which
Mr. Fundamental, he's got all the fundamentals. Okay, that's a pretty.
But he's passed Mingo up
Yeah, undrafted and then rookie out of Holy Cross, and he's 3K. That's enough for me to be interested. He's going to be on the field.
And
I'm certainly intrigued.
I think he's 4,200 at FanDuel.
That could be useful. I was just thinking, and I guess it's not going to happen, but this seems like a good landing spot if and when they're going to bring Young back. This seems like a spot they can do it. I guess it's not happening, but against just because. Inevitably, they have to bring. I think they have to bring Young back. Like, what's the point? Well, I mean, like they don't have to, but say you get 2 extra wins. Like, what are you doing, Carolina?
That's kind of Canales might be done with him, man. But that's been part of my thing about in redraft leagues of potentially selling Deontay Johnson during this period of like.
We actually mentioned that on the Established the Run Rest of Season podcast today was selling Deontay Johnson just because we don't know what's going to happen with Bryce Young. And that's kind of my only concern is at this game is that maybe Washington, although they don't have a defense, is so good that they, like we've already seen once, Andy Dalton gets benched, although that was against the Bears. So still not too concerned there. But it's the fact that both sides should be able to put up just a ton of points. Like last week even, was the first time that Jaden Daniels was truly tested. We talked about it. The Ravens held up to their side of the bargain. And although Washington couldn't run the ball because no one runs on Baltimore, like what Jaden Daniels' failures were still elite. Like as a pocket passer, basically. He finishes the QB9 on the week. His first time over 35 pass attempts. The issue, of course, is that he's not going to reach that number in this game. There's zero reason to pass the ball. The Commanders are going to run all over him. And so I'm also just kind of waiting out the backfield injuries right now because if Brian Robinson doesn't go, he was limited on Wednesday. We'll see. And even if he doesn't go, let's go to Austin Eckler behind him because don't even look at the RB1 stats, Dean, against the Panthers. Just like go straight to the RB2 numbers.
RB2.
That includes like Tyler Algier last week over 100 yards and a touchdown. But behind him, Roschon Johnson had 25 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chase Brown, when he was operating behind Zach Moss, had 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Gus Edwards rushed for 59 yards. And even in week 1, Jamal Williams had 38 yards and a rushing touchdown too. So it's like, let's see who comes out of this backfield, because I'll take Eckler. I'll take Jeremy McNichols if Brian Robinson's out as well. I think they're all very live, even if you want to play them with Jaden Daniels and no wide receiver from Washington.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty about this game is you can play it through both sides. I mean, you could do, because Chuba Hubbard has been absolutely awesome, and it looks like we're not going to get Jonathan Brooks until week 9. The clips looked fun today of him, out there in uniform. But I mean, he has 26, 22, 17, and 23 touches the past month. He's had 95 or more yards in all of those games. The only running back with more rushing yards than Chuba Hubbard over the past month is Derrick Henry. Yeah, he's getting explosive runs. He's 10th in explosive run rate over that span. And Washington has been absolutely smoked all year. The one constant, because there's been a couple quarterbacks, like if I'm going to come off of Dalton, it's going to be because we've seen a couple quarterbacks play Washington and not get there, particularly Kyler, and then whatever you want to call Deshaun Watson. I don't think he's really playing quarterback right now. But the running backs still get there against these guys. Yeah. So Chuba Hubbard at his price looks like an auto play, like especially if you're talking like from a cash game setting, like you just jam him in, because the Washington side, depending what we get, because Brian Robinson for practice today, it could be a sum of parts thing where like Brian Robinson's not 100%, so like all the guys are playing and they combine for 170 total yards and 3 touchdowns, but no one has like a 25-point game. But yeah, Chuba Hubbard looks like an auto play though.
Yeah, and Double J mentions in the chat about Washington's red zone defense. Rich touched on it a little bit already, how it could have been like the failures of Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson, since those guys have failed at least half of the season. And Lamar Jackson, although I know he didn't get there as the box score, surprisingly finished as a QB 13 despite throwing for over 300 yards. Like he averaged 12.5 yards per attempt. Like it wasn't a failure. It's just that they had such an easy time running inside the red zone that Lamar didn't get there in touchdowns. It's not only that, but like the last 3 games, when you can cite those potential improvements for Washington's defense, they have been playing a lot more man coverage under Dan Quinn, and Andy Dalton has just owned man coverage this year. Literally lead the league with the 73.5% completion rate and second in yards per attempt. Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette win against man coverage too. Deontay's been targeted on 36.5% of his routes. So yeah, I mean, what more can we say about the Panthers offense in this game?
Through 6 games, Carolina points against, points for, a net -100. I don't know if you guys have seen that. That is a wild number. That's pretty tough. Does Washington above 30 total, or are they close to 30, right? It's got to be close to 30.
20, yeah, just under 30. Yeah, 29.8.
I feel like that's one of the biggest totals you've seen all season long.
Yeah, I mean, you can just keep playing Jaden Daniels too. I mean, obviously his price now is gone up, but you can keep playing him.
It's, like you said, it's a matter of where you get stuff in the fourth quarter and maybe you just don't need it. Maybe he's got 4 touchdowns through 3. I mean, they got to put up those 30 points somehow. But
McLaurin looks awesome still to play. I think the one trap play in this game is Noah Brown. I think a lot of people are going to look at the targets from last week, but not look at the route rate. And it was an outlier for him, his like target per route rate too. It was nice to see him. He's been the wide receiver too in snaps anytime he's played. But he still, like in any game, is not running like a full allotment of routes. They're rotating other guys in. And like I said, and if you're betting on like one of the ancillary wide receivers in this game, naturally you would just want it to be one of the Carolina guys, right? Like there's going to be running more routes and be chasing more points.
See, I thought the trap play, just because of what ownership will be, since we continue making the mistake of chasing the high ownership for the cheapy tight end, will be Jatavian Sanders. Because if Trimble's out, everyone's going to play Sanders. Everyone.
Right.
Will Sanders get played ahead of Philadelphia tight end?
Yes.
Okay.
Better game environment.
I would say for the game environment, yeah. Plus, like they'll look at the box score and they'll see 7 targets for Sanders last week.
Yeah, a little bit cheaper.
He's a young, exciting player, Dean. Like Jatavian Sanders actually has like a trajectory he might be able to hit, and where Calcaterra
is Grant Calcaterra. Yeah.
I meant what is his like cone drill? Not impressive, I suppose. He's not known for being a great pass catcher. I don't know much about the guy. I'm just aware of his existence, basically. Like you said, because Goddard's been there for a while.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
all
Goddard's missed multiple games like 3 years in a row, and like none of these guys ever do. Like finally, one guy catches like like he has like a 30-yard catch and run, and people are like, "Yes, this is the dude."
All right. 3 games, 3 fun games. We're going to run back some of our favorite players amongst the games we've not yet discussed. I do want to mention a couple things. Do want to shout out Splash Sports. Splash Sports, they're raising the game with their brand new Quick Picks contest, giving you a chance to win 12 times your entry, 12x. Just pick more or less on any stack categories and build your entries using at least 2 selections. Now available in 34 states. Splash Sports, the ultimate platform for peer-to-peer fantasy and betting contest. Challenge the RotoGrinders expert at splashsports.com/RotoGrinders. Also have a promo code for you. Use promo code ROTO10. Get a $10 credit. Also want to shout out the RG Listener League. And this is where we typically shout out the winner last week. I'm not sure how they're handling this because I know internally we were talking about if somebody from RG wins it, what's going to happen is the next week it'll carry over to 2 months free. Shout out to Stevie. Stevie TPFL does the morning grind show, a lot of NASCAR content here at RG.
Oh, yeah.
He took down the contest by like 0.1 points. So I don't know if they're rewarding the next person or if they're carrying it over for 2 months. But either way, you want to get in on the action for week 7. Jump in the description here on YouTube as well. That's why you get to play alongside a lot of the RG personalities. And again, you get yourself a month free of RotoGrinders Premium, possibly 2. I'm not making that promise, but it might be a carryover. It might be an old school rollover because we didn't really officially have a winner last week. And lastly, our newest product here at RotoGrinders, it is the Combo Lite. It gives you the power of simulation for a fraction of the price of other tools. It's just $39 and change if you want to pinch pennies, if you don't want to get all the bells, all the whistles, but does include SimLabs, the lineup building tool, plus content from some of your favorite DFS analysts. Also, SimLabs, it's not limited to football. It's MLB, NFL, NBA right around the corner. This time next week, I'll be sweating NBA live, I'm sure. Doing my best not to show. As producer Steve, Shirley is sweating his Mets. I wonder what the score is. Steve, let us know. Hopefully it's good for you. All right. Again, check out Combo Light. Let's run it back. Our favorite plays we've not yet discussed as far as quarterback. Daigle, you are leading off.
I got one ugly one for everyone because we already talked about the quarterbacks I'm going to play. I'm not going to get to Brock Purdy or Patrick Mahomes. So I got one ugly one if you want to spin down. And it's very questionable, Dean. You didn't come to the show expecting to hear Aiden O'Connell's name be said.
No.
And there were changes, I understand, in the Rams secondary before their bye. Got Darius Williams back, benched Tre'Davious White as a whole. But everyone's going to want to try to play Jacoby Myers, 19 targets in the last 2 games, including the 40% and 36% target share before he got injured. Brock Bowers, of course, 22 targets in his last 2 games. Everyone's probably going to try to jam in these guys against what is still, on paper, a weak Rams defense, the 7th most points allowed through the air to opposing quarterbacks. And I'm just saying, okay, if we're thinking about playing Bowers or Myers, what if we just soak up all the targets since the Raiders can't run the ball? We've seen them in soft spots, even against the Panthers, and they're just incapable of it, and tack on a very cheap Aiden O'Connell with them. That's as deep as I got, though.
That's pretty ambitious. Rich, you want to see that and raise it? Can you raise AOC?
You can't raise that. It's impossible.
No. What's funny is I actually wrote in the worksheet this week that I thought like he'd be like a punt option for people.
Hell
like
yeah.
People would think about him as like a punt because you do have stacking partners, especially if Jacoby Myers plays. Because I'm definitely monitoring Jacoby Myers because he looks underpriced for his role that like we haven't caught on to. Because before he missed last week's game, they faced the Broncos and the Browns and 2 tough assignments, and he still had a 40% target share, a 25% target share. Mm-hmm. So it's like, man, these matchups get a little better, like he could have here against the Rams. Like we could be running into something, and then Bowers looks like just like a dude. Like I think Bowers is going to keep climbing in price. I don't really see like that slowing down. The only other guy I put on my list was Jordan Love. Just because he's been so good from a fantasy perspective. He's like not always good from like an efficiency perspective, but he just like always gets there. I mean, if you go back to the start of last year, he's finished in the back half of weekly scoring just 3 times. And like this year, he's already ripped off 3 or 4 QB1 games. He just keeps finding a way to get there every week. that touchdown to Romeo Doubs last week. Like there's no way that should be complete. Like that pass. But this is he's once again he leads the NFL in touchdown rate again. Last year he threw the most touchdowns over expectation. He once again is the number one quarterback over expectations again. It's just maybe we have to accept the Jordan Love world, but he's the only other guy I got.
Who do you pair him with? It's always tricky to figure out who to pair him with.
I mean, Jaden Reed's the best player.
Yeah. He's the most expensive, but yeah, like he's 7-2 currently.
And like the Dobbs stuff, I'm happy that people got there. I get the play, pivoting off of Dontavian Wicks in a flop flag situation and going to the touchdown or bust option in DFS. But it's like the exact Dobbs run that you expected. It was his lowest target share from Jordan Love in the 3 games he's played with him this year, 12.9%. He just happened to score 2 touchdowns as well to get there.
Dude, I mean, how fitting was it? Romeo Dobbs got up early. He's checking out the London game, and he's seen Gabe Davis do the same thing. And he's like, "Oh, I see you, Gabe." Because he's Green Bay Gabe Davis. That's who he is.
Stafford being thrown out by the chat, by the way, for what it's worth. We're expecting, I guess, on track to play is Cooper Kupp. That'll be interesting and worth monitoring.
I don't necessarily hate Stafford. Yeah, we'll see if Kupp gets back. It's been a rough run out for Stafford. He still doesn't have a top 12 finish in fantasy this year. He's been outside the top 20 in 4 consecutive games now. Maybe Kupp makes the difference, and then that's how you pivot off of Kyrie Williams, who, I mean, is just going to destroy the world in this game. But, yeah.
That is a good segue, Daigle, because, Williams is going to be, if not the most popular running back on the board, like top 2, top 3. Currently, ownership-wise, we have it Hubbard and Williams.
I mean, the last 2 weeks, the Raiders allowed 122 yards to Najee Harris and 111 yards to Javonte Williams. Those dudes, if you look outside of those 2 games, have done absolutely nothing.
Yep.
So, Kyron and Cash, like if you have one big spend this week, he's probably the first one. Rich, is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, he's got only Saquon has a higher backfield share of touches. He scored a touchdown in every game this season. Like I said, the matchups there, everything is just there for him.
What about tournaments, Daigle, as far as Williams?
Yeah, we'll see, because I'm interested in Amon-Ra and Jefferson like we talked about. So can't fit them all unless you play Aiden O'Connell. So I'm not sure.
Jalen Coker.
So it's an amazing play. Everyone knows it. And maybe some people will try to poke a hole in it because they'll give the Blake Corum post-buy rookie bump spiel, but that's just another hill that Kyron Williams will climb. All he does is leap things we put in his way. It just doesn't matter. There's 23 touches in 3 consecutive games now. Like, he's going to get the ball and he's going to score.
John, who is the AOC of running backs this week?
I don't have that one. Devon Achane may come close. And honestly, if you want to use Achane as like an analogy for Raheem Mostert, even I'm still trying to parse which one I think is a better play. But it is the first time we're going to see those two together since week 1. And remember, that's when Achane had the best usage rather than taking on the Raheem Mostert role behind the line of scrimmage. Maybe Tyler Huntley still dampens that outlook because Achane did get the ball in different ways from Tua downfield. But I'm still very interested in Achane, as we should be with anyone against the Colts, hence why Tony Pollard was the cash game play last week. And then another obvious one, and again, that's kind of my issue this week, is that I don't know how I'm going to parse through these running backs. Rich already mentioned Barkley, so I'll leave that for him. I'll go to Joe Mixon just because, we got 2 full games now from Joe Mixon. 26.8 and 27.2 fantasy points. Even in the first half, complete blowout against the Patriots, but he touched Dameon Pierce 12-3. It was all Mixon, and then only then was he scaled back with that ankle injury because they were blowing out the Patriots.
Richard, you're still trying to make Jacobs happen. I've been right there with you, and like it's just not
not this week.
We're out. It's just not happening anymore.
Not this week. Especially because no efficiency in positive matchups last week. I do think eventually, like if you're in a redraft league, he's going to run into some like this. The Packers keep scoring this many points, he's going to run into some touchdowns. But from a DFS perspective, there just hasn't been like the efficiency in 2 good matchups. So I'm probably not going to chase him in a worse matchup. I do like the Mixon call. I mean, we know Bobby Sloak in his heart of hearts what he wants to do. And when Mixon has been available, like we've seen Bobby Sloak's hand be steered. The Texans have run the ball 53% of the time when Mixon has been on the field this season. That only trails Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, and Tyler Algier. for running backs this season. Houston, in the 3 games that Mixon has played this year, Houston is 21st in drop back rate, and they're 24th in drop back rate on early downs. They're still doing the thing where CJ Stroud has to play hero ball on 3rd downs. CJ Stroud also only 1 QB1 scoring week on the season. It's kind of like the thing we talked about in the offseason, why he was a little bit overvalued, is just he has to run so pure, like, to get his points. I mean, you're not getting any rushing points out of him. So, like, those guys are always tough.
I believe without Mixon, he also had, the Texans had the 2nd longest 3rd down to go situation too. Yeah.
They're like facing 3rd downs. They're like bottom 3 in the league because Bobby Sloak does Bobby Sloak things. And Stroud has been incredible on 3rd downs. Like, he's been absolutely a demon. It's just they don't do like very much early down passing. It'd be cool if they did do that. But yeah, I do like the Mixon shout as well, because I already brought up Jordan Love. The Saquon thing is literally just how much revenge can you fit in them quads? So we'll see.
That's quads.
I think it was troubling though. Like, Saquon's usage last week was kind of troubling. We like that he still has a high share of backfield touches, but like, we did see, like, when he doesn't get the catches, like, there is kind of like a, he is a little bit more scarier. I know in a lot of these like redraft best ball leagues that are going on now, he's been like the 101. And I think that's maybe a little aggressive, to be honest, because he doesn't have that like receiving floor that I think some of the other guys have. I also like AJ Brown a lot this week too, but we'll probably talk about him. The other Brown I'll talk about is Chase Brown. Just keeps going up for Chase Brown. He now, since week 1, 25% of the backfield carries, 37% of the backfield carries, 50% of the backfield carries, 57% of the backfield carries, 63% of the backfield carries, trend up. And we saw he had lost the fumble at the end of the game and almost gave the Giants a chance to win that game. And very first play, they go right back to him and he puts it 30 yards in the box. Like, you love to see that when a coach just, hey man, you fumbled. So what? Fumbles happen. And then I'm gonna give you the ball right again. So you love to see that. And then the Browns, when they give up big runs, like, they give up explosive runs. I mean, they are 23rd in yards allowed after contact. They're 24th in rate of running back runs to go for 10 or more yards. So that is kind of like the last guy I have on my list. We're waiting to see practice reports for like all these other guys, right? Like, we brought up Brian Robinson. If James Cook plays, like, Ray Davis played on Monday night, so he'll be popular. They're favorites against the Titans. It's why I can't get back to Pollard, even though Buffalo has not stopped the run at all this year. But I am worried that just like an 8-point road underdog running back, I just never feel good clicking those.
It's all get some dump offs though, right?
What's that?
If isn't the backfield going to be mostly Hez there?
Tajay's not going to play.
Yeah, so would Chestnut be like the 3rd down guy, or is it mostly going to be Pollard?
It'll be mostly. It was like all Pollard last week when Tajay left. But I just never feel good clicking the guys, right? Like, the guys that are like 8-point road dogs. Like, I just never feel good.
Oh, I never like clicking the guys who are in an offense with Will Levis. I tried that last weekend. It did not go well. It is not fun to watch Will Levis play, despite the actual matchup.
If Deshaun Watson didn't exist, Will Levis has got to be thrilled Deshaun Watson exists, right? Because we would probably talk about more about how
I don't know. The head coach for the Browns doesn't call Deshaun Watson dumb to reporters. he probably says it to other people, but
that's also. I did have Chase Brown written down. It's just really confusing. Despite allowing explosive plays, like, the Browns really haven't given up like a ceiling game to any running back, despite getting blown out every single week. It's really odd. But Chase Brown was like an honorable mention for me.
Not to play the if-then game, but like, if Cook is ruled out, Davis would be like the guy that he will be jamming a bit.
It'll be Bucky Irving from last week.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of what I anticipate as well. So one more before we move on. Philadelphia is on the 1 against the Giants. Is it tush push season, or did they give Barkley a carry?
No, their coach is a toddler. Like, he's gonna try to sick them. He's gonna try to get Saquon a game.
He is, right? Like, I mean, that you can't catch that in projections. Who knows? And maybe some kind of like misdirection, and they let Barkley get a carry or something like that. We've seen a fake tush push before, but just a thought. Just kind of throw it out there. All right, let's talk about receivers. Daigle, what do you got for me?
Yeah, Rich hinted at AJ Brown, and we'll see what happens with Saquon Barkley's ownership. But I mean, so far in the 2 games he's played, it's been AJ Brown world, and we're just living it. 34 and 37% target share. I was sweating the the alt over 100-yard total last week, and then we got that 40-yard bomb on the last drive. It was like, yeah, everyone knew it was coming. We were just waiting for it. So yeah, man, it's all AJ Brown and Kellen Moore's offense if we get there. So love spinning up for him somehow. Xavier Worthy, I think, is an interesting one. It wasn't high, I know, but it was still a season high, 17.6% target share before the bye. Remember, last year was also after the bye, the first time they implemented Rashee Rice as a full-time player. Maybe they got something cooking, especially in a big Super Bowl rematch against the Niners for Xavier Worthy, implemented him more over the bye. So I don't mind trying to get ahead of him, especially if more people are going to play Juju. It's not the same matchup where the Saints have been cooked for the 8th most fantasy points in the slot. So like Worthy. And then if you want to pivot off Chase Brown, the only other one I have is T. Higgins. I think it's pretty interesting. The Browns are the only defense in the league running over 50% of their defensive snaps in man coverage. And both last year and this year, T. Higgins has been targeted on more of his routes than Jamar Chase against man coverage, 25% this season. Also over the last month of the season, it's T. Higgins who has 37 targets to Jamar Chase's 31.
It's funny you mentioned Juju because like this is the one where I wanted them like to kind of bump him up. I don't want to be tempted to play Juju. He's 4K.
No, they bumped Worthy up. Like Worthy's more than Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
But Schuster is 4, like straight 4K. It's like why now look, I don't want to play him. I don't think anybody wants to play him. Maybe somebody thinks that's repeatable, I suppose. But it doesn't sound like Daigle's very much on Juju.
We'll see. 4K cash game's going to trickle over. I don't know. We'll see. Again, we haven't started tinkering on a Wednesday. Just kind of our first glance.
I mean, yeah, if he's going to be owned in any capacity, in theory, I don't think I want that. But like again, who's left standing? Worthy's certainly interesting as well. He can carry the ball. They kind of do some creative things, get the ball in his hands as well, which is worth noting. All right. Yeah. By the way, Mahomes. It's like Kansas City. We didn't talk about anybody from Kansas City yet. Their offense is just. It's boring.
Imagine having a 49ers Chiefs game like on the main slate and kind of like, okay.
I guess. Maybe, sure.
I mean, the Chiefs stopped the run, so we can't play Garindo, even though he's expensive. I wouldn't even play Jordan Mason in this spot. And then Spagnuolo it's only been, 1.5 games really, with Brock Purdy off the bench a couple years ago too. But Spagnuolo has limited Brock Purdy to a 57% completion rate. We do lose L'Jarius Sneed unlike the Super Bowl matchup. So maybe Brandon Ayuk still gets there, but there are just a lot of question marks up and down that game.
Yeah. Devo was on the, I think they gave him a wrist. I wouldn't be panicking just yet again Wednesday.
Dude, in Mahomes, I think we've talked about this on the show before, Dean, though, but like when people ask me in season long, it's like, what do I do with Mahomes? They're like, I don't know, because I don't have the courage to tell you should drop him, even though you probably should in a 1-quarterback league. But he hasn't been a top 12 quarterback in 10 consecutive games in 11 out of his last 12, including this year. He's been miserable for fantasy based on how the offense functions.
Mahomes or Geno? I think that's my dilemma from one of my teams this week.
Oh,
and
come on, Dean.
I think I'm supposed to play Geno, right? Like it's like not even close.
I'm starting Stafford over Mahomes in FFPC.
Whoa, that is wow.
Okay. I don't fuck around with this shit, man. If you want to be a floor player, I'm getting you out of there. I don't care.
You took it to Stafford. That is another raise for sure.
Yeah, we might have the ghost of Clyde Edwards-Helaire back. I don't know if that's going to matter or not. But...
Yeah,
we'll find out.
Really
I don't know.
Chiefs
love bringing back all these guys. This is like the all fantasy zombie team.
Dude, Kareem Hunt had 28 touches. 28 touches last time we saw Kareem Hunt. It's wild.
Yeah. It should be a fun game in theory, but maybe not. Maybe a little less fun than it could be potentially. But
that's why I have Washington Commanders, so we don't have to watch the Chiefs game.
Yes,
and both teams have been terrible in the red zone too. We saw a little bit of regression for the 49ers on Thursday night, positive regression to the mean, but both teams have been terrible in the red zone.
We are going to have to watch some of them because they're in the 4:00 window this week. I believe it's 7-3, and it's Rams versus the Raiders.
There's two Monday night games again.
2 Monday night games. Yeah,
well,
of course there's
technically one. It depends who you ask if there's two.
Yeah,
Baltimore, Tampa, Chargers, Arizona.
Yeah, and Chargers Cardinals is on ESPN Plus only. Like that's going to get subscribers is watching the Chargers Cardinals.
If a game happens in a forest, Will Kyler Murray make a sound? All right. Well, maybe it's a nice little 2-game slate. We'll try to chase if you have a rough weekend, but that'll be fun.
And Cardinals defense is on it, so
yeah.
Play
J.K.
some
Dobbins.
Dobbins.
You're gonna go for another.
Play some Ladd and some Dobbins.
You could also say that about the Bucks, the Ravens offense, Baker Mayfield.
Bucks Ravens is gonna be fun as hell.
It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be hot. I can't wait.
That should be good. Rich, did you throw out receivers? I apologize if you did already. Did I miss them?
No. We wrap it. AJ Brown. It looks like Neighbors is going to be back, and he just gets so many targets. I think he's tough to ignore. I think this. I'm waiting to see how it shakes out, but I do have some mild interest in Tyreek Hill this week. He's had over 30% of the team target shares in back-to-back games. He should have had touchdowns in both games. He has 18 targets in those games, and the Colts they've been so bad on the outside that I at least have some interest now that he's dropped in the 7s. So we'll have to see how it shakes out, though. I don't know if it's going to be like a leverage play or anything. And we brought up most of the other guys. I mean, I'm going to play so many receivers from those games we talked about. Like,
you got to figure Miami did something in the bye to try to get Huntley a little bit more prepared. Although Tua is coming back next week, is that what it is? Or is that what we're expecting? One more week of Huntley, and then Tua is most likely, but we'll see. Stay tuned.
We don't
suppose.
know.
But yeah, I guess I know that coach did talk about it today, but we'll see.
I just earmarked it. I have to see how things shake out now that he's in the 7s. But like I said, Neighbors and AJ Brown are definitely probably priorities in a little mini if Saquon ends up being like a popular tournament play.
All right. I know that, Daigle, you want to talk about Kittle, I think. That's what you talked about in our little email. Are we excited about Kittle for tight ends?
Oh, I just call the tight end section George Kittle now because he's the only tight end that's mattered so far. Trey McBride, all the peripherals are popping. I'm not talking about on the slate. I know he plays Monday. But even so, it's pretty much just George Kittle every week. Although we've seen now in back-to-back games that Rashee Rice, like Travis Kelce, 32% and 29% target share. He's back in our lives because they can't rest him anymore. Like they have to have every guy in there for every snap. So Travis Kelce's interesting. No, I actually don't have, we mentioned some cheap tight ends. I really don't have anyone else except for Travis Kelce. But then also that's not even realistic because I'm also trying to spend up for these wide receivers. So like I said at the top, it's a tight slate right now. We just need some values to open up.
All right, Rich, what do you got? I have a couple. Let me ask you a couple of questions because Cooper, how much does he hurt Kincaid, if at all? And then the absence of Cooper, Njoku's projecting well because but again, projections can't capture the stench that is going on in Cleveland. I don't work in the projection team, but I don't let it factor in stench. Yeah. But in theory, he should get a bunch of balls thrown his way, and he's kind of cheap. 4-1, pretty fair, I guess. Pretty fair. Thoughts on those guys, or anybody else that's worth acknowledging the existence of?
I do think Cooper helps Kincaid because the way Kincaid's getting used, they just having a viable player that draws downfield, attention is going to help him. But Kincaid's usage low key kind of sucks. He's getting a lot of targets, which we like, but 29% of his targets have come at or behind the line of scrimmage. As a rookie, it was only 11%. He's also playing more inline this year. 44% of his snaps are inline. As a rookie, it was just 31%, so it's reduced his slot rate. As a byproduct of those things, 72% of his yards now are after the catch, whereas a rookie it was 46%. We just need more downfield targets from him. So maybe I think Cooper just probably opens up to for them to throw more flat routes like Dalton Kincaid, basically, because no one's guarding Mac Hollins or Keon Coleman at this point. So I mean, I think the Browns guys are interesting to a degree, but I just have a moratorium on Browns players. I chased Amari Cooper a little bit in some spots early this year. That team, like you said, the quarterback play and the offensive line play is so bad. The offense is so stale. They also lead the NFL in offensive penalties. It's just an abject disaster, on every level. It's terrible. If you do want to get there, I guess you could say, they're going to have to throw a lot against the Bengals probably. And Njoku did have 30% of targets last week. I'm fine with all those things. But let me tell you what if you just kept playing Brock Bowers? Yeah. What if you just kept playing the guy who has been targeted on 30% of his routes that Devontae Adams in the game? Like, what if you kept doing? And the Rams have been absolutely deplorable against tight ends. 13 yards per target to tight ends, by far the most in the NFL. Tight ends have caught 91% of their targets against them. So, like, what if you just kept playing that guy? I think on DraftKings, 5.8 is actually too cheap for him.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue obviously is the salary, but like you said, the salary is pretty fair. It's just right now we don't give me your favorite receiver that's around 4K. Like, we got to save some salary somewhere.
Yeah, you're probably playing Juju or Coker, right? Like, I know no one's playing Coker. They're all going to play. Yeah. I'm going to keep bringing up Coker because people are going to play Noah Brown.
Speaking into existence.
No, people are going to play Juju. That's where they're going to go.
Yes, absolutely. People are going to play Juju.
Is that what we want to do? I don't know. I don't want to do that in theory, but like
someone will probably play Judy too. You didn't bring up the Judy thing, but like I'm sure someone will get to that.
I mean, I joked about the Judy thing because I think it's a joke, but yeah, I mean, he will like Njoku, he will get more volume. He's already averaging 6 targets per game. What will be of that volume? I don't know. I have no idea.
And I guess no point. I'm trying to get like Moore or Tillman. We're not going that far, right? I know they're cheaper, obviously, but
Tillman is going to be the guy that gets like the reps because he plays outside. Like Elijah Moore is not going to start. Like he'll just still be the slot guy.
Is he 3K?
Yeah, of course he is.
If they bumped him up, I would be shocked.
I mean, Juju had 100 yards and they left him at 4K. Like Cedric Tillman definitely wasn't a proactive because Amari was traded yesterday.
Yeah, I think if you're running a bunch of, I think you're probably getting some just because as of right now, and we know things can change, but there's not a ton of salary savers out there to make stuff work. We like a lot of the,
it'll always get there by the end of the week. We'll have something kind of open.
We need this Jeremy McNichols in the worst way possible.
Yeah. Well, I know that limited practice this week for Robinson, I believe. Wednesday we'll see. Maybe they just realize they don't need him this week. Also, that could be another thought. But
now we'll win.
The fact that he opened with a practice probably
comes back, and he wants to play. I'm sure he wants to play against Carolina for sure. But all right, anything else as far as this week that we should note? We're going to talk about our movie in a second. Do want to shout out those on the YouTube comments. I was told last week on YouTube, like, hey, just have a separate movie podcast because I love the football content and appreciate y'all listening to the football content. But that's the reason why we do the movie stuff at. You can just stop. You can just stop the pod. And just, I guess it's a full-on warning. No more football from this moment on, unless we have one more note.
So we talked about the Dwayne tweet. Like, you're allowed to just keep scrolling. Like, you're allowed to.
I saw that comment. I saw that comment last week too. They're like, separate the pods. It's like, what would make us separate the pods when you could hit stop right? We literally promote to hit stop right now. Thank you for listening. Now see yourself off.
All right. So we're done. Football wise, it should be a good week for sure. Stay tuned to the news flow. Let's get the plugs out. Oh, I should have done it before everybody left.
Oh, yeah. Come back. Don't see yourself off. Come back.
They know it's week 7. But just in case they don't, Rich, tell the people where they can find you. They cannot find you in your DMs. They definitely cannot find you.
They definitely cannot.
But where can they find you?
Yeah, sharpfootballanalysis.com, writing up all these games every week. If you have a player that you're curious about, I wrote something about him. Go check it out.
Daigle?
EstablishTheRun.com, waiver wire, and the buy sell pod, as well as the rest of season pod. It's all free on the Establish the Run podcast feed, but all the writing behind the scenes at Establish the Run, where I'm even there through Texas, Georgia, updating the waiver wire for all you Saturday night sickos. So everything stays up to date.
I've been holding on to the wide receiver, the waiver wire 1 for like 3 weeks now. Just waiting for something. I'm waiting for
You haven't missed anything. Keep holding on.
Yeah, I'm still one of these weeks. Something's going
to it was Jordan Mason in week 1 was the Kyron Williams / Puka Nacua of 2024 so far. We'll see if something else opens up. I expected it to be Dontavian Wicks, and Wicks led his team in targets 2 weeks in a row. Wicks actually led the Packers in targets in the first quarter last week as well before getting injured. But don't look at the results. It was not good.
All right. Our movie this week was Godzilla -1.
Dean, can I get my plug in first real quick?
Yeah, go for it, Rob. What's up, Rob?
Yeah. Plug when you show up.
I'll usually plug at the end, but I want to get this one out early. I have a live show on Friday. So if you live in the Boston area and you're looking for something to do with the significant other, We're going to be telling ghost stories. We're going to be having fun. It's going to be a lot of laughs, a lot of drinking at Barrel House Z in Weymouth, Massachusetts. It's $25 for a ticket. It's a 4-hour event. There's going to be a ton of other stuff to do there as well. So if you're looking for something spooky to do with your significant other, I highly suggest coming out and seeing our live show on Friday.
Tell them about the podcast as well.
Yeah. So the show is Hometown Ghost Stories, where every week we cover a different town and we talk about all the hauntings in that specific town. And at this event, we are covering a location that we swore we would never cover, specifically for the live crowd. So that's what we're doing at the live show this Friday.
All right. There you go. Nice little tease for the people out there.
Yes.
All right.
I'm also offended that no one wanted to hear about Tiptoes.
Wow. I know, right?
If there was 1 week to listen, I think the Tiptoes discussion, I would love it. Let me know, or let us know in the comment section on YouTube while you're hitting the like button. Do you actually watch the movies with us? Did we sell anybody? Say, okay, I'm going to watch Tiptoes now after that riveting 20-minute conversation. It's so bad. It's something you just have to see. It's a complete train wreck. But
we're going to have fun here. But I feel like as I was watching Godzilla, I was like, this is kick ass, but it's not Tiptoes. It just kind of let me down.
It's definitely not. It's definitely not.
Why is Gary Oldman not playing Godzilla in this movie?
Yeah.
I want Gary Oldman on his knees. All right. If you're not aware, this is fun. When Tom was like, I wonder what Godzilla -1 was on. It is about Godzilla. And the description here.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's more like a redemption story and kind of like a love story without actual like physically act. Well, we'll dig into it, but the description on Rotten Tomatoes, it's really quick and to the point. Japan is already devastated by the war when a new crisis emerges in the form of a giant monster. PG-13, a little bit over 2 hours. I watched this about 3 or 4 months ago, but I did give it a rewatch because I wanted to pick up on a couple of things the second time around. And spoiler alert, I thought this movie was awesome. So I'm like, yes, I will watch this again. And I am not a monster movie, action movie kind of guy. And I thought this was just spectacular. Who wants to open up their thoughts as far as Godzilla -1?
Well, Daigle picked it.
I can go first. I thought a lot like what we said about Barbie. I'm not comparing Godzilla and Barbie. Everyone calm down. But like a lot like we said about Barbie, when it comes to monster movies or movies like that, where it's very on the surface, you can punt it. You can give up and it'll still make money. I do not think that movie did this. I thought they went all in. There's actual like emotions being involved with humans, as you said, a redemption story, a comeback tale. The music is also very good. And so, yeah, just to draw any amount of emotions and create a story and plot with these characters out of a monster movie, I thought was incredible. Not only that, I didn't know Godzilla could swim. Mind you, I haven't seen a Godzilla movie since Godzilla 2000, I think it was, which is like one of the worst ones.
Is that Matthew
Broderick one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen a
Daigle.
Godzilla movie since that one. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah,
I saw it in the movie theater, and like I went with a group of friends, and like one of my friends brought a random friend who's like a big Godzilla fan, which I don't know. And he was so upset when Matthew Broderick was making out with the love interest, he flipped off the screen. He was very, very angry at Matthew Broderick. And I never saw that person ever again. I saw that person one night.
And so that was
they're like little raptors too. Like it's like has like a bunch of the baby Godzillas. It's just like little raptors.
Terrible.
Yeah, not good.
And that was my experience with Godzilla before this one, which also may have been why I was hesitant to watch this. But the good reviews swindled me into doing so, and I was very pleased. Even with, like in the chat, Mr. Gerg mentions Godzilla's head getting blown off and magically grows back. Obviously, swimming Godzilla also gets pissed off in the ocean after the Japanese Navy like attacks him with missiles, and so he just turns around and eats their ship. He becomes Super Saiyan in the town as well and shoots blue flame. So that was pretty kick-ass. Yeah, I just thought you can be a dumb action movie, and if so, I would have appreciated that. I love dumb action movies, but that was not this. This is a very good action movie.
The blue flame thing, like when he hulked up, I thought like once he did that, like his energy was kind of zapped. But we saw like later on in the movie, like he could do like kind of back to back, more or less.
I love the CGI of him like all like flamed out too afterwards.
Yeah.
He looks sweet.
The character design was great on Godzilla in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They won an Oscar this movie for
I didn't know that.
special effects, right?
Do you guys want to guess the budget? I was curious what the budget was. What you want to guess what the budget was for this movie?
81 million.
Pretty high.
Rich?
120.
This is what shocked me too. The budget, $15 million.
What? Wow.
I guess maybe. I guess it all just went to that Godzilla.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I was shocked when I saw 15 million. Like, they did a spectacular job with that money. Well delegated for sure. But Daigle, you mentioned the music, and I couldn't help but think of Beastie Boys, Intergalactic Planetary. That's
I mean,
where my brain went.
The song is Pharaoh Monch. Don't you remember Pharaoh Monch? They sampled the Godzilla song. I guess I'm showing my age here, but yeah.
Is that not Intergalactic Planetary? They sampled both? Fairly certain. Remember the video? They even had like a Godzilla in the beginning of the video. Am I making this up? Somebody in chat confirm. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, in the video, it's like I can't remember. It's like a robot, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a Godzilla robot, I guess. It's been a long time.
Pharaoh Monch literally sampled the Godzilla theme, which they re-put in this movie.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not aware of that. But
listen, you gotta go listen to some Pharaoh Monch on YouTube.
I'm out of my element on that one, but I'll check it out post show. Rob, you tend to hate everything. Did we like this?
I actually did like this movie. I thought it was really well done. I like walking back Godzilla into the villain role, because Godzilla is now a hero. Like 90% of the time he's in a movie, he has kind of transitioned to that. I like that they walked back the entire series, and I guess that's why it's called -1s, because it's supposed to take place, way back before the first one. And the first one was an allegory for nuclear war, right? Like, and this one was an allegory for, I mean, it was more in the face, but for PTSD of war. So they're showcasing something. They're not over the top with it. You're still getting both of those, like, quote unquote messages. And every time Godzilla shows up, it matters, right? So like, you're not showing the monster just to show the monster in this movie. When he shows up, it's important that Godzilla is there every single time. And it even starts off fast too. So like, my only complaint on this movie is the runtime. I think we could have shaved off 20 minutes of this movie and made it like an hour 40.
What would you have cut? Like, is there any significant scene you'd have thrown away?
I think you could have cut down some of the end scene for sure. Like, you could probably get 2 minutes off of that. You could shave some of the middle stuff as well. There was just some scenes that did run a little long that could have been shaved here and there.
There was just a lot of duplicate scenes where they were doing a lot of, like you said, the survivor bias, the trauma. We already knew. It was like, that was already established, and they just doubled down, right? Like they doubled down. The one character that bothered me the most was the one. I'm trying to think of the characters' names, because but it was the one group. They had the four group of guys that went out on the boats when he took the job, and it was not the kid. It was not Kid, and it was not obviously the guy ended up being the scientist, the other character. And like, because there's a scene where like they're having like the nighttime dinner, and he like shakes him about marrying her. It's like, dude, we already got all this. Like we don't need you.
He was the fake god. I mean, the fake Jaws character, the ship captain. He was essentially like that character. There was a lot of Jaws. I felt like a lot of Jaws was going on in this movie in certain respects when I was watching it.
I didn't think about it until you mentioned it, but I also like the fact that Godzilla was pure evil in this movie.
Yeah,
like that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I don't even hate him when he's a hero. Like, it's fine, but he's much better as a heel than a face, right? Like he's a much better heel.
Godzilla is a hero in some stories. I don't know. He's
a hero in almost all stories,
and all the new ones.
Yeah.
Really?
Even
Matthew Broderick was the villain the whole time.
Well,
yes.
That doesn't count. And if you show that movie to anyone in Japan, they will probably sentence you to prison time. This. Oh yeah, that movie is universally panned. The Tokyo company that runs Godzilla was so appalled by that movie, the character design, everything about it, that they took all the rights and like made sure that they were the only ones making those movies for quite some time. So But yeah, he's usually the hero. After the first few movies, it would be him and Mothra teaming up against a new random kaiju creature. And that's where like Mechagodzilla and stuff comes in because they needed heels, you know? He's the Hogan. They needed
King
the
Kong
heels.
at some point? Am I making that up? Did he fight King Kong, or is that was there a merge?
And then the newest one they fight together, like Rob said. Like,
who do they fight against?
Some giant other gorilla.
Giant other gorilla, Mechagodzilla.
Some jobber.
Yeah, they did Mechagodzilla 2 and the one before this one.
Yeah. I mean, they're fun, like popcorn movies. They're not, I don't think they're great by any means. This one was way better.
Oh yeah, well, this is like it was a solid movie. It had themes like you talked about.
Movie. I do like that the scientist did. This is going to be like a random reference to the NFL, but didn't the scientist, like all of his mannerisms, remind you of Tony Khan, the owner from the Jaguars? just the way he moved and stuff. I was like, that's
extravagant.
Yeah, just very
Tony his mustache.
Yeah, he reminded me a lot of Ty Waititi. A lot too.
Yeah. Did you guys ever do Jojo Rabbit on this before I came in?
No.
But I've seen
it before though.
It's a good movie.
Did you like it?
We'll watch it again. Yeah,
it was a great movie.
Yeah, it was really well executed because that's a movie that could have been really bad, but they nailed it. It could have gone. There's a big range of variants there. How that could have turned out, but I thought it turned out really good. And you mentioned it, Rob. You were talking about this wasn't a Michael Bay production. Like they picked their spots with Godzilla. And they told the love story, they told the redemption story, and maybe
$15 million.
Yeah, maybe in part was the budget, right? Like you said, just 15 mil, and it made a ton of money.
They made that shit stretch, though. I will say that.
Yeah, they definitely did. Monster movies are very specific. Like you can't show too much monster, right? Like, and there's different degrees of this. Where if it's a monster like Godzilla and stuff, you need to show them a little bit more. But if you overexpose it, you lose your audience because you're just seeing too much of it, and you just become numb to it. So you need to really pick your spots when you're showing like a Godzilla or a King Kong, and when you start showing like other monsters that are lesser degree stuff, like if you're doing like a werewolf movie and stuff, you need to see those even less because you need to be anticipating it more, right? You need to be building up that suspense. So I thought that they really nailed it with what you should be doing with a monster like Godzilla in this movie.
You mentioned Jaws. Like Jaws was kind of a happy accident. It was like a disaster on set, but they didn't end up showing Jaws till like 40 minutes in the movie or something like that, and they barely showed them. It was just the music, and it played much better. Absolutely, the less you saw of Jaws, the better that kind of worked out.
I recently reviewed Jaws again, and other than the title theme, the score of that movie is garbage. It's really bad. If you ever go back and watch Jaws, listen to the music that they're picking for a lot of the scenes, and it doesn't match. It's too whimsical, and it was taking me out of certain scenes that should have been better.
I saw it for the first time a couple months ago. I know I'm way behind. I did see. I'm doing like a lot of old school stuff. I'm like watching.
Where do you see Jaws 3?
I've not seen Jaws 3 or Jaws 3D from Back to the Future either. I've not seen that one either. My understanding is they get progressively more and more ridiculous and just worse and worse.
Oh, they fall off a cliff after the first one.
Yeah. 2 is really bad too. 2's got Michael Caine in it, right? That's the one with Michael Caine.
Yeah, it's like it might be the worst, but we've been having listeners that are begging us to review Jaws 2 because they're like, it's the best one. I'm like, I know it's not the best one. I know that's false.
But if it's like the tiptoes of shark movies, it could be fun to talk about.
I kind of want to watch Jaws 2. I hope Dean picks Jaws 2.
I had a couple movies on layaway, but maybe we can make a pivot on the fly. I don't know. But we have to give anything else you want to say as far as the movie. We didn't kind of dig into the whole story, but you guys, the people,
I mean,
there's a giant monster.
It's a well done Godzilla. That's the story.
Yeah. Kamikaze Pilot has his redemption story.
Oh, I have another nitpick. I have one more. This spoiler alert because we spoiled this movie. She shouldn't have lived at the end.
No.
She should not have been alive at the end.
No chance.
Right.
You threw away all your stakes at that point. You threw away everything you built up at that moment. His redemption arc should have been being the father to the girl and carrying on her legacy. So
and the forgiveness from the dude from Oda. Like it was all well played. until that point.
Yeah.
Speaking of Godzilla might have lived. The last thing we saw was Godzilla regenerating.
Godzilla lived.
So they're setting up a sequel, and
just don't blow Godzilla's head off.
Yeah.
He can regenerate. You know,
they established it earlier in the movie. He was going to regenerate.
Yeah.
The rules of Godzilla. There's rules in this world. Mr. Girk says they blow off Godzilla's head and it magically grows back. Yeah, that's just how. You just gotta go with it. You gotta go with it.
I did like that they didn't try to explain anything about Godzilla. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
I don't need a backstory.
No, we don't need origin stories on a lot of these movies anymore, man. That's been the problem.
They are not in my head, so like they didn't mean for this to be intention. But anytime there's also like a kamikaze moment, I can't help but think of the greatest kamikaze moment in film history in Randy Quaid going to destroy the aliens. So that's all I thought about at the end of the movie.
I wasn't sure if you're going to reference Independence Day or just his real life kamikaze of destroying his own life.
Sure.
He was the perfect actor. The character casting.
Fire up the Google on that one, kids. So should the lead have survived? Should he have survived?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The whole point of his arc should be him living because he was dead. He was essentially dead for the movie. Like he was the Walking Dead, right?
Yeah.
With the PTSD and everything. So him coming back to life at the end is his character arc. So I thought that was well played. Her death is part of that though. Him understanding it through her death. So you kind of throw all that away. And then it also makes him look kind of like a shitbag because like if she was alive, why didn't he go find her? During that scene, like why didn't you go find her?
I mean, to be fair, who knew where she landed when she got blown away?
I know, but he didn't look for too long. He was just like, oh man, that sucks.
I wouldn't have looked. Would you guys have looked?
I will say that this movie did the one thing too that does bother me when they do it is like the magical upper body strength play, like it happens in every action movie. Like when she caught herself on the dangling thing, I'm like, there's no way she's catching herself. Like, but every character has in action movies just has the most amazing upper body strength. It's like, where did you just develop the upper body strength? Yeah. She's never done that girl never did a push-up. Like there's no way to catch herself like that wasn't happening, but fair enough.
IMDb score. Daigle, you're going first, 1 through 10.
I think it gets better on Rotten Tomatoes. So let's go 7, and it's decimal, right?
Yeah.
I ask every week. 7.7.
7.7. Rob?
8.1.
Rich?
I'll say 7.5.
So Daigle won both showcase showdowns. It's a 7-7. Daigle nailed it.
Wow.
Yeah. He just killed the game right from the start.
Love a good
7 out of 10. Rich, tell me both the critics and the audience. And you know what? I'll tell you this. It's the same number. It's the same number. The critics and the audience have the same number on Rotten Tomatoes. What do you got?
I'll say 88%.
Rob?
92.
Daigle.
I was gonna say 89, so I'm just gonna say 89, go right in the middle.
Invert it. 98%.
Okay.
98%.
I knew they were gonna like it. Yeah.
It's a monster number. 206 reviewers and over 2,500 verified ratings. And that's just, again, Rich, I know you want to get it's a thumb up, thumb down, and it's a thumb up. Yeah, you might not have loved it, but it's a thumb up.
Yeah,
it's a thumb up for sure. Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and grade the movie. Rich, do you have a tight end in mind?
Yeah, in honor of Godzilla, I wanted to go with a high BMI tight end, but he had to be good. So I'm going to go a solid Algae Crumpler on this.
Ooh.
Okay.
Atlanta Falcons.
A lot of Madden games won with Algae Crumpler.
Oh yeah. Imagine if Algae Crumpler didn't have to play with Mike Vick, what would have happened?
I mean, he was great in Madden for me. He caught so many touchdowns.
Well, Vic was great in Madden too.
Yeah, exactly.
Algae Crumpler or Delaney Walker. Those would have been my two guesses.
Yeah.
He had a couple good years. Yeah. 700
Algae was good.
yards. Yeah, he had some moments. Okay.
Honestly,
8 touchdowns in 2006.
Honestly, Vic too. Like, imagine Vic coming into the NFL like a decade after he did, because remember, like they tried to do the Greg Knapp, like let's put Mike Vick in a West Coast offense. Like that shit would never happen now. Like he would have been embraced. Like we're gonna swerve into everything Mike Vick does well, and that like early Falcons years, like they just jerked him around.
My example of that is always imagine if Randall Cunningham came into the league, like
best player in the league.
Could do the Vic stuff, but also had the deep ball.
I mean, Vikings Cunningham was amazing.
Yeah, and he didn't run then either. Like he was
he had Moss, right? Wasn't he paired with Moss?
Moss and
Carter and Jake Reed
as well.
And Jake Reed,
yeah, he was really good on Minnesota. All right, we have Algie Crumpler. Rob, what is your rating scale?
It's out of 5 with decimals. 3.9 out of 5 for me.
No second decimal, just a straight 3.9.
No, I can't. I would lose my mind trying to figure out the second decimal. I would just give it. I would just have to give it pi every week at that point.
Daigle, you got a wrestler for us?
Big monster. Anytime he's on screen, shows up and gets to wreck shit like Godzilla. It's Kane.
Oh, you blew it, Daigle.
Well, who would you say?
Who should have been?
It's Samoa Joe. He uses the Godzilla theme to start off his theme.
Fire comes from the turnbuckles with Kane, so I like Kane. It's my grading system.
It is true. It is. Samoa Joe's the answer.
Yeah. Get something better than numbers, Rob.
I know I should.
I got to get away from my numbers. I do a 100-point scale. And so I've been recently, after I watch movies, I've been like on a 5-point scale, my own personal ranking. I've actually been writing the movies I watch. And when I watched this a couple months ago, I gave it 4 stars, 4 out of 5. And I stand by it. And I don't need a calculator, but I'm using that math. I'm going to say we're going to give it an 80. An 80 out of 100 for Godzilla minus 1.
Are you a letterbox guy, Dean?
Yeah, we should do letterbox. I have
letterbox, but I don't really know what to do with it, but I should be a letterbox guy. Are you a letterbox guy?
No, I was just wondering if you were. It seemed like you'd be.
I should be. Yeah, I know. I feel like I should be in that world, but I'm not. But
I love how most people wake up, they'll journal their thoughts or emotions before getting out for the day. Dean's journaling his star ratings for Sideways.
Yeah, I should tweet out my movie. I probably shouldn't. I'm sure that'll be a fun for Twitter. But we spoke about that earlier. But yeah, I probably watch, well, depending on how busy I am, that kind of thing. But I probably watch 5 movies a week. So I'm knocking out.
Dang, man.
Knocking out a lot of movies.
God, I gotta do something else in my life. Like I feel like Rich has the video games. He's got to put in the kid time. Dean, you spend that time on movies. I feel like I just spend that time out at bars. Like that's kind of my Chicago lifestyle.
Man of the people. Hey, Rob, does anybody ever slide in your DMs and then hang out with you randomly in Massachusetts? Would you be down for that?
I don't know what we're talking about right now. Like a random,
just to catch an adult beverage, just to
like a
fan. Somebody like fan? I'm a big fan of the podcast. I like Ghost too.
Yeah, I've had a few fans reach out to me and want to go grab a drink or buy a drink whenever I'm in whatever area that they're in. So yeah, it's happened.
Yeah, I forgot that you weren't listening to the first part of our conversation, but it was
I listened to it the next day. I actually listened to the podcast on my way into work the next day.
Shout out to you. All right, appreciate it. Okay, so I just found out today that I guess I snuck past you. You were in the lead in our contest, so I have to nominate.
Yeah, again, 2 weeks in a row that I just get snuffed out right at the very end.
You're dying to give us the most obscure Halloween movie. You still got a couple more weeks to make it happen. I'm sure.
Time, Rob. You got to step up your game. You got 14
I got to win
this is your time.
Also, we got to TJ's banned if he's not going to be here. What are we doing?
He's got I think he's in New York for some Comic-Con stuff.
Buddy, it's October. Back. You can't tell me about being busy in October. I don't want to hear it.
I don't know. We got producer Steve now hanging out with us. Okay, so he's telling us that TJ is 2 weeks away. So TJ, will be back. He will be back soon enough.
He was on IR.
Yes, he's on IR. Yes, there you go. He's hanging out with Tua somewhere. But okay, this is the movies that I wrote down. I still had Challengers on my list. I haven't watched that one yet. That is the threesome movie, tennis threesome. So
Like
a
one of those
Clooney,
things.
a big tennis guy, a Clooney and Brad Pitt
Zendaya
released the
guy.
movie, and we're not even talking about this. I don't think it did well, but it's a movie on Apple, and it's Clooney and Pitt, and generally they're spectacular together.
What's it
Ocean's
called?
11, Wolves. I think they're like cleaners.
Not wolves, but wolves.
Oh no, it
Wolves.
is. It's wolves, not wolves. Wolves.
Wow.
All right,
So I wrote that
issues.
down.
I've got issues already.
Yeah, what's happening here?
I also saw on Twitter today that today is the 9th year anniversary of the movie The Lobster. I don't know if you guys have seen The Lobster. Have you guys seen The Lobster?
I haven't, but
I
I know of it.
That is same director who just did the
Yorgos Lanthimos.
Emma Stone movie, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lanthimos. It is. He does really interesting movies. You don't necessarily.
Yes.
Yeah. You might not like it, but I think if nothing else, they're interesting. Did you like the Emma Stone Good Things? Were you a fan of that?
Poor
John?
Things? Yeah.
Poor Things.
Poor Things. Yeah. I thought it was. I think that guy is one of the most creative minds in all of film. I have no idea if that means I like his movies, but I think he's very, very creative.
So
that can
Lobster?
go two ways sometimes because
Yeah.
I can't remember the director's name, but he came out with Hereditary. Then he came out with
Hereditary rules.
Hereditary is awesome. Then he came out with Midsummer, which was like people were divided on. And then his third movie was just critically panned. Like I don't know if he's going to recover from that third movie.
What is it?
Tiptoe.
No, it wasn't. I'd have to look it up, but
He's
I
not going to recover. Spoiler.
It was Joaquin Phoenix, and it was like where he played himself at multiple different ages throughout the movie, and it's like a 3-hour movie. I have to look at the name. While you're looking that up, I'll find the name.
Not The Master.
No.
Okay. Because I like.
I
actually like The Master. Oh yeah, it is. You're right.
Ruffalo in Poor Things was one like he puts on a great physical acting.
Yes.
Job in that movie.
Yes, and Emma Stone was great in it too. I thought it was. I want to watch it again. I thought it was interesting.
That movie has a lot of good like physical performances that are really good, underrated.
It's just strange. It's definitely a weird one, especially because I went in not knowing. I just knew about the Oscars, and I was like, oh, let me just see what's up. It's like, oh, all right,
okay. Dean, pick one for us.
It's not the movie to go in cold for sure. But Lanthimos is working hard. He just put out Kinds of Kindness. It just hit Hulu as well. Another Emma Stone movie. I've not seen that one either. But whatever you guys want. I think the safe one is Wolves.
Not how this works.
It's not how this goes, Dean.
I think The Lobster. I want Daigle to see The Lobster. And
okay.
I guess Rob, you've not seen The Lobster either.
I haven't seen it either. No.
Rich, you've seen
Colin
it.
Farrell, right?
I have seen it. Yes.
Yeah. Colin Farrell's having a moment now. The Penguin is spectacular. I don't know if you guys are watching that.
This was kind of one of the turning points, right? When he started to make his retribution, like his comeback. When he stopped being just like a leading man.
Yeah.
I have the thing.
Have you ever seen the Total Recall of Colin Farrell?
I have not. Is it good?
No. It's like a movie that doesn't exist. Like no one knows it exists. Like no one has ever talked about this. Like remember he went on a run there. Well, he's literally talked about he doesn't even remember making Miami Vice because he did so much coke. Like which is like, but like he did that leading man phase and like all that stuff just tanked. And then like I think wasn't The Lobster like when it started to like he started to take a bunch of smaller parts and like that's when he became a character.
Critically acclaimed.
He's in like.
Yeah, the Banshees of Inisherin. He was really he won some awards for that.
That was the big one. That the Banshees was the one that really got
in Bruges.
Yeah, in Bruges.
Minority Report, I think, is underrated. I'm a fan of that movie. I like the reference to precogs. I don't know. For some reason, I don't feel like we talk about that one enough. But yeah, I think the thing with Farrell is he was kind of forced down our throat. It's like here's 19 movies this guy you never even heard of. You better like him. And we kind of rejected him, and then he's come full circle. Like, wow, this guy's actually really good. We should have liked him from the beginning.
He was shot out of a cannon. What was it? Tigerland that came out was like his first movie that he sort of got. And then Phone Booth was after that, and Phone Booth was actually really good. Which, for the premise, you would think it wasn't going to be a good movie. Also, the director I was thinking of was Ari Aster, and the movie is Beau is Afraid. And I didn't see anybody that liked Beau is Afraid, and it's like 3 hours long too.
Yes, I think it's in my queue somewhere, but you're telling me to drop it to the bottom of my queue. I should not watch that.
From what I haven't watched it, to be fair, I've seen the reaction of everyone that has seen it, and I haven't seen one good reaction to it. It's like a fever dream, supposedly.
I think we're going lobster. Does that go there, everybody? The lobster
Works for me.
Love that.
The lobster. It is all right. We're in less than 2 hours still, despite the fact we combined both podcasts, the NFL and the movie podcast, all in one. Do appreciate those of us that have stuck around and hung up and talked a little bit of Godzilla. We'll be talking some lobster next week. Of course, we'll be talking NFL Week 8. Good luck, everybody. Take down some money for Rich. And I was going to say for TJ. TJ is not here. Producer Steve, for Rob, for John, I'm Dean. We're out of here. Good luck.